It was a brilliant Saturday morning in Crestwood Ridge, a suburban community where front lawns were immaculately trimmed, neighborhood dogs barked from behind white picket fences, and kids zoomed around on bikes like time didn't matter. The sun hung high and warm above the neighborhood streets as 11-year-old Jalen Brooks walked with a spring in his step and a backpack loosely hanging off his shoulder. Inside the bag were a football, a pack of fruit snacks, and a comic book, simple essentials for a day at the park with his friends. Jalen was all smiles. He had waited all week for this. No school, no chores, just freedom and laughter and games at the green open space by Cypress Creek Park. He passed houses he'd known all his life, waving to the occasional neighbor, not paying much mind to the world beyond the warm bubble of his joy. Just a few blocks away, inside a corner convenience store, Officer Darren Collins, a newly appointed patrolman fresh out of academy training, stood stiffly across from the store's manager. He was investigating a reported shoplifting incident. The manager, flustered and unsure, gave only a vague account. A young boy, maybe 12 or 13, black, wearing a dark hoodie, he thought. The only other witness had offered even less, merely noting that the child had run off before anyone could stop him. No camera footage. No clear image. No conclusive identification. Still, Officer Collins, fueled by a misguided eagerness to make his mark, let his imagination do the rest. As he glanced out the large glass window of the store, his eyes fell on Jalen. The boy was walking alone, his hoodie tied around his waist, and though nothing about him matched the flimsy description, Collins' focus hardened. His grip instinctively moved to the canister of pepper spray at his belt. Jalen didn't notice the officer step outside. He was focused on a squirrel darting across the street and the thought of winning the game they'd planned for the afternoon. But as he turned the corner past the convenience store, Collins approached fast, expression cold, steps firm. "Hey, you," the officer barked. Startled, Jalen slowed down, looking up in confusion. "Me." Without a word of explanation, Collins raised the pepper spray and, in a motion that was both cruel and unfounded, sprayed the boy directly in the face. Jalen screamed in pain as the chemicals hit his eyes. The world became fire and blur. His backpack dropped to the sidewalk with a thud. Tears streamed uncontrollably as he clutched his face, his small frame doubling over. He had no idea what was happening or why. His mind raced. What did I do? Why me? The burn intensified. The sidewalk became a spinning canvas of light and pain. Jalen cried out again, his voice high and desperate, but no help came. Officer Collins remained unmoved. He grabbed the boy by the arm and yanked him toward his patrol car parked a few feet away. "You know what you did," Collins growled. I didn't do anything," Jalen sobbed, stumbling as he was dragged forward. The street was alive, filled with onlookers, some curious, others concerned, but none intervened. Collins wore a badge. That was enough to make people keep their heads down. When they reached the car, the officer opened the back door and shoved the boy inside roughly. Jalen collapsed onto the seat, still gasping, his face swollen and red, the searing chemicals leaving welts around his eyes and cheeks. He heard the doors slam behind him like the bang of a prison gate. As the vehicle pulled away, his heart pounded. What had just happened? What was going to happen? His mind spun in circles as he blinked into the blinding pain, clutching his face with shaking hands. The car arrived at the precinct within 10 minutes, but to Jalen, it felt like an eternity. Inside the station, Collins dragged Jalen by the arm through the main entrance, past a few raised eyebrows and silent stares. The boy was disoriented, his shirt stained with tears and mucus, his breathing shallow. He was shoved into a small interrogation room, a windowless gray box with flickering fluorescent lights and one lonely chair in the center. Collins forced Jalen down into the chair, then exited briefly, returning with a damp cloth. Without warning, he grabbed the boy's chin and began wiping at his face roughly. Jalen flinched. The coldness of the cloth could have offered relief, but the officer's harsh, impatient motions only made it worse. The boy whimpered as the fabric scratched over already inflamed skin. "There. Now open your eyes," Collins ordered. Jalen squinted, barely able to see. His vision was still blurry, and the tears hadn't stopped. Collins didn't wait for him to adjust. "Why'd you steal from the store?" he demanded, his tone accusatory and sharp. I didn't," Jalen stammered. "Don't lie to me, boy," Collins snapped, standing over him, voice rising. "You think I don't know your type?" Jalen's stomach dropped. His tears came faster, his mind failing to make sense of the hatred in the man's voice. "I didn't steal anything," he said, voice shaking. "I was just going to the park." But the officer didn't care. You kids think you can do whatever you want. You think we won't notice when you act up." The tirade continued, filled with generalizations, venom, and misplaced rage. Jalen shrank into the chair, crying harder. He wanted his mom. He wanted to disappear. Collins leaned in close. "Confess." "Now." "No." Jalen sobbed. "I didn't take anything." The interrogation dragged on. The officer's fury grew. Pacing now, he hurled more accusations. "You're just like the rest, stealing, ruining everything. People like you." Jalen couldn't process it all. He shook, teeth chattering as the trauma piled on. He hadn't done anything. Why wasn't anyone helping him? Then, the door opened. A tall figure stepped inside, Lieutenant Marcus Fielding. A seasoned officer in his late 40s, his uniform crisp, his presence commanding. He paused when he saw the boy. Something about Jalen's face, swollen, frightened, tear-streaked, gave him pause. "What's going on here?" Lieutenant Fielding asked calmly. Collins straightened. "Caught him stealing. Pepper sprayed him. He resisted." Fielding looked again at the child, then back at the younger officer. "Did you confirm he matched the suspect's description?" "Close enough," Collins replied dismissively. "Did he have the stolen items?" "No, but..." "Did he resist? Or was he blinded by pepper spray?" Collins hesitated. That was when Fielding stepped fully into the room, knelt beside Jalen, and gently asked, "What's your name, son?" Through trembling lips, Jalen whispered, "Jalen Brooks." Fielding froze. His eyes narrowed. He looked again at the boy's features. "Jalen Brooks?" Collins noticed the sudden shift in tone. "Yeah. Why?" Fielding stood slowly. He didn't answer at first. His mind was already racing. With growing disbelief, he pulled out his phone and made a single call. Seconds passed. He spoke no words into the phone, just held it to his ear. 2 minutes later, the interrogation room door burst open once more. Chief Daniel Brooks entered, his stride purposeful, face unreadable, his badge glinting under the harsh lighting. But all of that fell away the second he saw his son, his only child, sitting small and terrified in that metal chair. "Jalen," he whispered, rushing over. Jalen blinked, his sore eyes trying to process what he was seeing. "Dad?" The chief knelt and wrapped his arms around his son. "I'm here. I've got you." The room fell into stunned silence. Collins looked like he'd been hit by a freight train. "Wait, you mean?" The chief stood slowly, his face darkening with every passing second. His gaze turned to Collins, and the full weight of his authority bore down like a storm. "You sprayed my son in the face without evidence. You dragged him here, terrified him, interrogated him, accused him based on what? His skin? His presence?" Collins stammered. "I didn't know." "That's the problem," the chief growled. "It shouldn't matter who he is. He's a child." Fielding stepped aside. Collins tried to speak again, but the chief raised a hand. "Save it. You're done." The statement carried the force of finality. "You're being terminated. Today. There's no space in my department for someone who acts like this." The junior officer's jaw dropped. "Please, sir. You think I care now that he's my son? I care because you targeted an innocent boy. I care because what you did was wrong. Period." Collins was escorted out in silence, his face ashen, the weight of his disgrace bearing down like chains. Chief Brooks knelt again beside Jalen, who was now trembling in his arms. "I'm sorry this happened to you," he whispered. "I promise, this ends here." That day sparked more than an internal investigation. It sparked mandatory training, department-wide reforms, and public outrage once the full story surfaced. Though the events were harrowing for Jalen, they also became the catalyst for change in a precinct that had too long overlooked its own flaws. Justice had been delivered, and for Jalen, the walk that began in innocence ended with a new understanding of the world, but also, finally, a reaffirmation of his father's unwavering protection.